It is the Jim and Terry Show, coming to you from the Hobbit Hole Studio in Bob Cajun. I'm the only host today. Terry and my good friend Jim will be back in the Hobbit Hole on Thursday. In the meantime, the trade negotiations that never were, that were never going to happen, that were just going through a charade. Well, I'd like to take a look at the qualifications of the teams doing the negotiation and point out a few things that make these the likelihood of this transaction, this thing going on with Kuzma being renegotiated, that it's ever going to work. And I just, I hope for the best, but the reality might be somewhat different than my aspirations. This might be an aspirational Kuzma. Aspirational. Aspirational means it's something you hope for, maybe you wish for, maybe you desire, secretly dream about in technicolor dreams, but it's not going to happen despite your click your heels and wish it and blow out the candles. It's not going to happen. And again, I just wanted to just spend some time looking at Janice Charrette's qualifications and LeBlanc's qualifications. And in this case, I'll start with Charrette, who is, to me, the civil service servant that we expect to represent Canada. She's twice been the clerk of the Privy Council and secretary to the cabinet. She has functioned as the head of a federal public service and the primary non-partisan advisor, get that, to the Prime Minister. She served as Canada's High Commissioner to the United Kingdom from 2016 to 2021, cultivating international trade and Commonwealth relationships. She's held deputy minister positions and senior leadership roles across multiple federal departments, including human resources and skills development, as well as citizenship and immigration and health. She is appointed as a member of the King's Privy Council for Canada and named an officer of the Order of Canada. That's who we are sending as part of our team. And what about LeBlanc? Dominic LeBlanc is the son of the former Governor General of Canada, Romeo LeBlanc. So, he knows his way around government just by being in proximity to it. He is, or was, in the cabinet of Justin Trudeau. LeBlanc served as leader of the government in the House of Commons from 2015 to 2016. He served as Minister of Fisheries, Oceans and Canadian Coast Guard from 2016 to 2018. Minister of Intergovernmental Affairs, Northern Affairs and International Trade. Served as the President of the Queen's Privy Council for Canada from 2018 to 2021. Began a second stint as Minister of Intergovernmental Affairs in 2020. After the 2021 election, he remained Minister of Intergovernmental Affairs, but additionally became the Minister of Infrastructure and Communities. In 2023, LeBlanc became Minister of Public Safety, Democratic Institutions, and Intergovernmental Affairs, gaining responsibility for public safety and democratic institutions while remaining Minister of Intergovernmental Affairs. Following the resignation of Chrystia Freeland, LeBlanc became Minister of Finance, and he gave up that responsibility for public safety and democratic institutions while keeping intergovernment affairs portfolio. So there you go. Those are qualifications of the Canadians going into this deal. Tenured positions, 40 years of public service in various branches of government, all dealing with the ability to negotiate and to find ways forward and work out disagreements between factions in a nonpartisan way while achieving some kind of progressive legislation, moving the ball forward for the prime ministers of the day. And that is a credit to Canada and a credit to the team that we've assembled under Mark Carney. So, highly qualified. What do we have with Greer? And what's that thing here? And Greer has, he's qualified. Bachelor's degree, Brigham Young, master's degree, holds a JD degree, Juris Doctor from the University of Virginia Law School. He was not in public service, though. in his role of Chief of Staff, he oversaw the development and implementation of U.S. trade policy for the executive branch. He also played a role in negotiating the Phase 1 trade deal with China. So he's implementing policies. He's not negotiating trade deals. And his mentor was someone who I didn't really appreciate, Robert Lighthizer. So check out his career in negotiations from 2017 to 2020 as a reference point. Now, to his credit, he did serve as a JAG in the military, Judge Advocate General, if you remember the old TV show. And during his military service, he was deployed to Iraq, where he served as chief of the military justice. But justice is not the name of the game when you are negotiating. Implementing the will of commanding officers and implementing the will of the executive branch of the U.S. government is not trade negotiation. So I did a simple run-through, a compare and contrast of Canada's negotiation leadership under Janice Charest and Dominic LeBlanc, and looking at the U.S. trade representative by Jameson Greer. And it highlights a structural contrast. Like, these are two different beasts altogether. One is about serving an authority, serving whether the military or the executive under Trump, serving an executive. The other one is about serving the people. And if you remember, I said the word republic it represents the people. But it's not evident in the United States at this point, and under Trump has certainly disappeared off the radar completely. So what about these two different approaches? Canada is a career, 4+ decades of civil service in all branches of the government. And the other side is implementing the will of the Orange Jesus. Yeah, so one is negotiating in good faith. One is simply get the deal done at all costs, beat them into submission at all costs. There is no notion of negotiation with the American side. So when I said the stark contrast, structural contrast, I meant that one serves the people, which is the Canadian side, career civil servants. The other side is implementing and following executive orders. Canada's approach is a public service heavyweight. Charest brings 40 years of nonpartisan, get that, nonpartisan statecraft. The U.S. approach is a legal litigation specialist. Jameson Greer's background is heavily anchored in international trade law and private defense practice. So we're talking about implementing things here, not negotiating things. And this is where we get some friction. The U.S. team's background can create frictions in a negotiation. While Greer is deeply experienced in trade remedy litigation, and he's like a pit bull, aggressive in his bargaining, and he's already demonstrated this with this round of CUSMA or USMCA and the China tariffs. He's primarily operating from a legalistic and confrontational playbook, and he introduces specific vulnerabilities in a broader international negotiation, meaning there's a limit to what he can accomplish because of his framework and experience. Treating diplomacy as litigation, a legal background focusing on trade remedies and trade tariffs is representing a zero-sum courtroom battle rather than an ongoing economic partnership. And here's the problem. His years of litigation experience is zero-sum. That means we win or we lose, but there is no partnership. So that's a problem right from the get-go. Who Trump appointed, Jameson Greer, is a problem. I do not envy Charest or LeBlanc for having this as their task, trying to negotiate with madmen. Whether they are legal experts, military experience or not, it's all about authority, and that is a problem. Short-term leverage versus long-term stability. Legalistic trade teams often prioritize the immediate, the structural concessions. Get them to back down on dairy. Get them to take off their retaliatory tariffs. Get them to, the list goes on. And it sees it as deficits and retaliation. Instead, the civil service background looks for quiet, steady stabilization. Not looking to rock the boat. The Canadians are looking to stabilize integrated supply chains, stabilizing what already exists, not rocking the boat, not looking for retaliation, but that's what Trump is all about. Break them. That's what he wants to do. Break Canada by any means necessary. And of course, the risk is that we will have an impasse. The American strategy under this framework, under Greer, relies heavily on maximum pressure, unilateral leverage, and demand. Well, good luck. Team Canada, elbows up, going into the corners, over the boards. Everybody's in this one. I think Wab Canoe has some good points. Stay tuned. Bye-bye.
It's complicated, this relationship I have with my morning coffee. It's from the way that I brew